And now for the piece de resistance. If this doesn't boil your zombie takeout, nothing will. Hello and welcome to Zombie Takeout, the B-movie and cult movie show. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And without any further ado, on to this week's movie, which is from 1966, Lord Love a Duck. I found out about this one because of Critical Role, hence the Vox Machina shirt. Vox Machina was the name of the party in their first campaign. One of the players, Taliesin Jaffe, who also does a lot with Geek and Sundry, has said that he saw this movie when he was young. His grandfather directed it, and it really heavily influenced him. And Taliesin Jaffe is kind of like the real world's most interesting man. He's got a story for everything. Like he was the kid in Mr. Mom.
Oh,
He was a
okay.
kid actor. He's a voice actor, well,
That's
primarily a
cool.
voice actor now. But
Yeah.
he was a kid in Mr. Mom, and his life just got more interesting from there. He's got a story for everything. So when he says this movie influenced him heavily, I thought we needed to review it. And so, oh, by the way, this also kind of is a two-parter overlapping trilogy, because this is the beginning of a Critical Role two-parter. The DM from Critical Role, Matthew Mercer, is in next week's movie, and it overlaps a what I'm calling a fantasy shit trilogy. There's probably better names for that. Anyway, of course, on to the impromptu plot summary. Sponsored by I Married a Teenage Bikini Vampire on Some Kind of Fish, coming soon to an aquarium near you.
And also brought to you by the Ten Commandments. I haven't seen the movie, but I've read the book. All right, so we have this young man who well, they're in high school. He's looks doesn't look quite look it.
I have trivia. Roddy McDowell was born on September 17th, 1928. He was 36, playing a high school senior when this movie was filmed in 65. He was opposite 22-year-old Tuesday Weld, but he was the same age as Harvey Korman, who played the school principal, and 3 years younger than Lola Albright, who played Barbara's mother.
But anyway, he's the they begin sort of like a flashback. Well, they tell the story by flashback because they begin with the graduation. He's chasing around a guy in a wheelchair. There's all sorts of zany things
They show
happening.
you that at the beginning of the movie too. I remember him running into the building.
Yeah, then they chase him into the building, and he gets caught, and he goes back to the whole thing from the beginning, and it's well, there's a girl involved,
Of
and
course.
he's obsessed with her, so much so that he's pretty much stalked everything out about her, and takes her out for a bit of a date, and promises her whatever she wants, he will give to her.
He basically becomes her valet.
Right.
Or her butler. He's her servant. He will do whatever she wants.
And it's kind of like, well, why the fuck is he doing this? The
Because
whole
he
time.
never flirts with her or hits on her.
Right. Never
There's no
flirts with her.
indication that he's interested in her in that way.
But I mean, he brought her a boyfriend, he brought her, yeah,
Further indication that it wasn't a romantic or sexual interest,
I
which
mean,
confused me,
never
especially at the
mind the
end.
boyfriend. I mean, they wind up marrying, and he's
Yeah.
still, helping her like get, smooth situations over, and um, she wanted sweaters before that, and yeah, or wanted to at least be within the wealthy kids.
She
So
wanted 12 sweaters so she could get into the sweater club. I just got such a kick out of that.
yeah. And yep, he helps figure out how she'll get that money, and it's of course by taking advantage of her, divorced parents, her father. It's a mathematic equation that just kind of like makes you, a divorced father plus guilt equals sweaters, and then she's like, so that's gonna get me a sweater, and you're like, it's gonna get you 13 sweaters, and so right, he gets her the sweaters. She gets accepted in with the rich kids. He gets her a boyfriend that she winds up marrying. He gets her even a shot at a film career too, because he envisions her as this, you know, as this star that, of course, is in reality what happens after, of course, the climax of the film. Um, and then, of course, he confesses why he did it. Mr. Valedictorian
Mhm.
did it for love,
Yes. Even though he never showed any, and he doesn't expressly say it was romantic love,
right?
but he never showed any interest in her in that way throughout the film.
It just made you want to climb into the screen and just start beating him. I mean, the fucking like he's pretty much hypnotizing her and stuff to do to buy into this.
Oh, he's a total Svengali.
Yes.
Which, and it's interesting that you were creeped out by him. I kind of really respected him.
Well, I mean, you got to respect him, of course. It was just at the end
Oh
where
yeah,
it was kind of like I did it because I loved her. It's like, you
I think
stupid, dumb fuck.
the movie is a satire
Yes, of
of
course.
the '60s, and
I
I
mean, I'm
think
just doing the plot summary though,
yeah,
but there's a lot being said here.
yeah, and hilarity ensues, of course.
Yeah, hilarity.
And I think the I did it for love was kind of a joke. It was kind of the cliche, of course I did it for love, which is supposed to be total bullshit.
I
That we're
think
supposed to figure out later.
I think it feeds into it. It definitely feeds from the entire package of what he's trying to say in
Uh-huh.
this. And I mean, there's so many confusing things. You really have to take a step back to say, like, what the fuck is he talking about in this? But once you think about it, it all makes sense. It all
Mhm.
comes together, and it's
Okay. Also, Alan, Roddy McDowell's character, calls himself Mollymauk, which is
yes.
a bird that was thought to be extinct. Taliesin Jaffe's character in the current campaign on Critical Role is named Mollymauk, named after him. I understand the character so much more now. But the guy named himself after a bird that was thought to be extinct.
But I mean, the overall message, and it's really interesting considering this is only 1966,
Mhm.
but he's pretty much talking about the next generation becoming this materialistic, narcissistic, sociopathic group of people who pretty much don't even know. They value celebrity and fame and materialism more than they value love or even understand what love necessarily is. And the interesting thing about this is he's not blaming the next generation that's coming up. He's blaming the current generation
Yeah.
and their lack of leadership, their lack of role models, and their lack of being parents.
And he's talking about the very beginning of boomers.
Oh yes,
The very beginning of the boomer generation.
he's talking about this in 66 where the kids are kind of being a bit rowdy,
Mhm.
but everything about this, like even when he's like on this like what could be a killing spree at the end, the adults are saying, how did we fail you?
Right.
like I mean, everything about it was how Harvey Korman, which I was like, what? I didn't see him in the credits
Uh,
even. So
I
then
noticed it in the credits.
Peter,
This movie has Roddy McDowell, Harvey Korman, and Ruth Gordon in it. There was
Ruth
no way
fucking
it couldn't
Gordon.
be good.
Did you know? And I was just looking this up at IMDb. She was like 70
Yeah,
at this
I
point.
hit to check her age as well. She was born in
Fucking
the
70.
1890s.
1896.
Yeah, she was
She
nearly
was like
70 years
70
old.
years old in this.
Yeah. She
And still
died
has,
in the 90s.
right, she still had like 20 years of a movie career ahead of this. I thought it was the 80s, but
No,
uh,
it was the 90s. I think she retired probably in the 80s.
oh, okay.
I don't think she did anything in the 90s that I can think of.
I mean, did silent films in 1915
Yeah.
all the way up into the 80s. Yeah.
Because
So
I
70
saw her in
career.
this and I was kind of wondering, was she ever young? And then I checked her age and yeah, she was young. It was just a long time before
She
anything
did
that I've
not
seen
look
her in.
70 in this. She looked amazing for 70.
Yes.
It was kind of like, what? I had her pegged like maybe 20 years younger than that at least. So yeah, he does this whole indictment but not of the boomers themselves, but of the other generation. And yeah, how Harvey Korman is just so easily manipulated.
Mhm.
I mean, he Andy does these crazy things, and then he's in the office and just like, guess we'll just have to laugh, kind of thing. You think he's like about to get in trouble for beating up the other kid, which I don't know if that would have actually even happened even before
Right.
what took place in this movie. I think it would have been like, you guys fought and you kicked his ass. It wasn't on school grounds. Who gives a fuck?
But they get into it way before then. I think the line that had me sold, that was one of my intros. We're your local police. Why don't you support us? Over the loudspeaker in school while they're chasing him through the school. And then he's being shown these ink blots because 60s,
Right.
and he's going into, which I loved. He's going into all these detailed explanations of what he sees in them, and trying to like tell him it's supposed to be about sex.
They're supposed to be dirty.
Yeah.
Well, wait, what?
And then he starts analyzing the shrink. Although, how did he have a tape recorder in jail?
He had to. There was a scene where he bargained for it. Remember?
Oh, I forgot. Okay, I forgot that part.
He's like, I will tell you, but on one condition. You have to like. He winds up bargaining with the shrink in jail, and she, of course,
Okay.
manipulated into
Right.
giving him a recorder.
Mm.
But yeah, the first clue you're really given of what's wrong here is the relationship between, um, I can't remember Tuesday Weld's character's name,
Barbara Ann.
Barbara Ann and her mother, and just how
Mhm.
they're just so weird and creepy together.
And I loved how subtly Weld played the embarrassment of, when they pull up to the house and she pulls up drunk with the boyfriend. I
Right.
never really thought Tuesday Weld was that great of an actress, but she really knocked it out of the park in this one. And she had amazing chemistry with Roddy McDowall.
Yes. Which is why I wanted to climb into the film and just beat him up at the end.
And I love that he kicked the football player's ass because it's Rodney McDowell. He's this skinny,
Right.
frail guy. And this football player, like, he's there at the makeout spot, and he's shining a flashlight on people and making bird sounds. And he does it to the football player, the captain of the football team, after she tells him not to. The football player gets out of his car, and the guy is like literally made of
In
muscle.
in my notes, I have Mr. Clean the early years.
Well, he wasn't bald. He had like
No,
just
no,
pink
he
toe
was
hair. He
young.
was bald.
Before he lost his hair. Come
Yeah.
on. He's dressed
Um,
all white though, and
no, the guy was bigger than Mr. Clean. He
yes,
was.
it's true too. Mr. Clean's trim. This guy is just.
Yeah. And of course, he wants to fight him. He tells Molly to get out of the car. Alan, Molly, I'm going to be using them interchangeably. Probably going to call him Molly most of the time. Tells him to get out of the car, and he takes a swing, and he uses martial arts on him, and just levels him
Right.
to the point where he gets called into the principal's office because Billy Gibbons, that was his name, stuck with me because Billy Gibbons is a guitar player in ZZ Top.
All right. Yeah.
Billy couldn't play football anymore. And the principal is yelling at Molly for that. Also,
And
how
you
amazing
expect
was
him
it?
to get in trouble for it, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And you're
because
kind of expecting like this unfair thing that they had a fight off campus, and yet here he is called in the principal's office for it. So you're expecting like that's going to be the plot point where he's getting unfairly punished for something that just he was a jerk, but he did defend himself.
right,
It was a fair fight. But instead, it's just the principal is just so beguiled and just
yeah,
easily charmed and just like we'll just
as is every authority figure in this movie.
right.
And how amazing was it to have Roddy McDowell and Harvey Korman do a scene together?
Right.
That was beautiful. Incidentally, I just want to point out, because it's a common misconception, Roddy and Malcolm were not related. In fact, their last names are spelled different. Roddy's ALL, Malcolm is EL.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
just to clarify, because it's a common
They
common
always
misconception.
seem, I mean,
There is a strong resemblance, though.
right. They're both British dudes. Come on.
And you mentioned the scene where he's doing the math about the sweaters.
Yes.
They were just hanging out in a classroom.
Yep.
How does that happen? Two students just hanging out in a classroom.
Well, that was the other thing too. He was able to talk the principal into hiring her, Barbara Ann, for
Right,
a
right.
job,
Yeah. I
and
think that was later though.
it probably was,
Yeah.
yeah.
They were just hanging out in a classroom when he's explaining the math of how she's going to get the sweaters.
And
And
goddamn, the creepiest scene of the movie.
oh, that was just so incredibly disturbing. First off, she's naming the colors of these sweaters in a black and white movie, which is hilarious.
Right? Find out we can't see the color, guys. But damn, this gets even creepier.
Yeah, she's naming them as the father is just laughing incessantly, which was just really annoying. But then she starts posing for him, and it
Yeah.
just and there's animal noises, and it just got
And
disturbing.
it just builds up and builds, and you're just like there's just this crazy sexual tension
Yeah.
between the father and the daughter, and you're just kind of like,
And
no.
a lot of the scenes, I'm tempted to say all of the scenes in this movie kind of felt like sketches.
A lot of them did, right?
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Um, oh, speaking of Corman, I really liked, the scene where they're talking about the mic and they just added a little bit of delay to the audio to show that the mic was alive.
Right.
It was just really a nicely subtle way of doing that.
And yeah,
And
again, he's just out, and you kind of get the feeling, he's just enamored with her too. I mean, if you hadn't seen the scene with him and Molly earlier, you would think that he was like into Barbara Ann
right.
too, but
Yeah.
the way he was with Molly, it was the same way. He was just enamored with anybody young.
Which was really a trope in the 80s and 90s, the
Hmm.
principal trying to be the friend of the students.
Right.
But it goes back a lot further, apparently. And of course, we get to of course, my favorite part of the movie, the drive-in church. The slogan is literally, worship from the comfort of your own automobile.
Yeah, he spares no one in this. Yeah, the church is even indicted too.
And there's a line about how the proof that prayer is answered is because whatever happens, that's your answer. And then the next scene, we have the preacher from the drive-in church lecturing these girls in the high school about heavy petting.
Right. That had to have been scandalous for
Yeah.
66. I was just kind of like, wait, was this actually in the original movie? Did they let this go?
Oh, yeah. And his assistant, the preacher's assistant, is taking them all on this um getaway, what's retreat supposedly.
Right.
That is really just a huge beach party.
A beach blanket party.
And as he's trying to shag Barbara Ann, he hears one of the other girls, kind of moaning and, talking to a guy, and he rushes off to stop them, even though he was just trying to shag Barbara Ann.
Right.
Although I do think the beach party musical interludes went on a little too long. It really felt like a laugh-in.
Uh, that they were kind of parodying those movies
Yeah,
that
yeah.
were from that time.
I
think
just
they
feel
did
like
a really good job of it
it
too,
was just a
because it
little
felt
too much,
you really felt like you were into one of those.
And then about halfway through, right before, it's the scene at Bob's house after Bob is the assistant to the preacher who takes them
Yeah.
on the getaway. We get to Bob's house, which kind of seemed out of nowhere, but we really get a glimpse of who Alan is.
Yeah.
Because she asks, it's when she tells him she wants to marry Bob. And then she asks him, "What's in it for you?" Basically, why have you been helping me? What are you getting out of all this? And he says, "I think of things." And he basically uses it for places this day and whatever else he can get from people.
Right. We never really learn about Alan's
Alan,
parents.
nope.
Like, we have no idea about any of his background. We see
We
these
don't
other
really
parents.
we don't really know anything about Alan
Right.
because he was the chameleon to make the statement about everything else.
And just ingratiating himself with everybody, including Ruth Gordon.
Mhm. And I don't know what was up with the audio in the conversation pit. There was a conversation pit in Bob's parents' house, Bob's mother's house, And a conversation pit, for those who weren't around in the 70s, is a part of a living room that's sunken down that just is aligned with couches.
I forgot about those.
Yeah. I had a sunken living room in my first house. It was a full living room, but
Yeah.
a conversation pit is kind of a small version of that. It's just a couch, a circular or square couch in a sunken area. Again, it was a 70s thing. In the scenes in the conversation pit, the audio was just ridiculously echoey, and it's only like that in that scene, which is weird. And Ruth Gordon's character, Bob's mother, really liked the phrase pure and simple. She used it like 20 times. I have okay.
the whole string of attempted murders.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we get to that,
Okay.
The first murder, possible murder. How do you know about? I'm answering my own question, but she shows up to her house, Barbara Ann. Alan's there, and he says her mother has had an accident.
Well, that wasn't a murder.
Well, he said when she brings him in to see the body, he tells her it's not to touch anything because it has to look like an accident.
Because if it was a suicide.
Oh, okay.
And if it was a suicide, they wouldn't have gotten the insurance money.
Ah, that would make sense. Okay.
So he's trying to make it like an accident, so she can get the insurance money and not be broke.
Ah, I missed the suicide part. Okay.
Well, I think it was, at least, because she was depressed by the whole meeting,
right,
of Bob's,
and she
mom.
had a significant drinking problem, and
yeah.
But I wasn't really. They weren't really clear about that, and I kind of got the impression that maybe Alan killed her, but I wasn't sure.
That's not entirely far from possible either. I mean, I could see that happening too, but I think it was a suicide.
Also, and this is going to be relevant in a minute. During the beach party scenes, they meet a B movie director,
right?
And Barbara Ann tries to get it a what's the word I'm looking for? Not a screening, a test shoot with him, and they say they're going to set it up. Again, now back to Bob. Somehow he became a marriage counselor.
Well, right. Well, that's what he was studying for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was at the Bible, study thing to become a marriage counselor, and yeah.
And they marry each other. Of course, they get married, and it's a mess. And he won't let her do the test screening, the test shoot to see if she can be in the movie. He's just completely against it. I kind of lost the plot after the beach party.
Well, then, yeah, because it gets even weirder, because she says, I want to get a divorce, and he says, where I'm from, we don't divorce our husbands.
His mother, Bob's mother, says this. We bury them.
I thought it was Molly that said this.
Well, she had said it first.
Yeah.
Molly was just parodying Ruth Gordon's character.
Okay.
Where I'm from, we don't.
He was quoting that then. Okay.
When Barbara Ann first told her that her parents were divorced,
right.
Bob's mother says, "Where I'm from, we don't divorce our husbands; we bury them." And then Molly parroted that basically to say, "Do you want me to kill him?"
Wow. Okay. So now it makes sense. I forgot about the quote that he was quoting Bob's mother. All right. So there's so divorce isn't an option.
Right.
So you have to bury him.
Bob, rather Molly Allen makes several really funny attempts at killing Bob.
My favorite when he was arguing about with the physician about the poisonousness of was it
nightshades?
Nightshade or belladonna. Of course, it's fatal.
Because I love a good car gag. I love when the car just fell apart.
Just falls apart. How does he survive that? The seatbelt, the car, the wheels off. I mean,
he drives it through a wall to a car, used car dealer who is in the middle of shooting a commercial, saying that he'll take whatever you can drive onto the lot. I'll give you $500 for anything you can drive onto the lot.
Oh man!
In the middle of that, Bob crashes through a wall in this car that had been falling apart the whole time.
A deal's a deal. Here's $500.
And of course, in the middle of all of this, the director comes back and tries to set up there's a word that I'm missing, a test. A screen test. That's it.
Screen test, yeah.
To set up a screen test with Barbara Ann because she really wants to be in a movie. I love that the director calls Ellen the kvetch. And then we get to the graduation scene. I had forgotten that they were still in school. I think the movie forgot that they were still in school.
I think she dropped out
Okay, maybe that's it.
because he actually says not all of us can be dropouts.
All right, all right.
So she had dropped out to get married, and he, stayed in somehow, despite being there all the time.
Yeah,
It became valedictorian still.
this movie really likes its cartoon logic.
It did kind of have that whole banana splits kind of feel when it first
Yeah,
began, like
very much.
chasing someone around in a wheelchair,
Yeah,
and
I
the
think
with the
that was. I just have it in my notes. The wheelchair is in the opening credits,
yeah.
which kind of looks like a trailer, but we see him chasing the wheelchair and the bulldozer in the opening credits, and that's really where I said I'm going to like this movie. Yeah, so we get to the graduation scene, which is when Bob, who is in a wheelchair from the car accident, is chased around by Molly in a bulldozer. Scene kind of reminded me of a bullfight
Yeah, it was. It was a lot like that.
because Bob gets out of the chair at one point and just kind of hits the deck so that the bulldozer runs over him and he's kind of hopping around. And ultimately, which is I think why he was arrested, he takes apart the stage and sends everybody on the stage flying as well as Bob. There was this weird kind of upside down shot of all of them with these lines, basically reinforcing the idea of the authority figures don't really care. They're just
They,
kind of okay with whatever.
they implied that he killed a bunch of them. Like a bunch of them died.
I don't know if he killed them or if he just injured them and kind of just tore apart the stage and just kind of caused havoc, which is why he was getting
Well,
chased.
they were like flying through the air kind of thing,
Yeah,
and of course the husband was dead because she was able to go and become a movie
right,
star in the
right.
end.
Yeah, he implied that he was too.
So I think a number of them were killed, and that's why he was locked up in the end.
Possibly, yeah, that makes sense. And then he's in jail and finishing his flashback, effectively,
Yeah.
the monologue that was caused the flashback. And he says, "I did it for love." And he says something along the lines of, "You see, I know you're going to see this coming," or "It's obvious that I did this for love," which kind of suggests that that's bullshit. And it's whatever his real motivation is kind of unknown.
I I think it was for love. He just didn't know how to
Maybe.
express it himself.
Mm.
And that was just his way of doing it. Like, oh, I'll get you whatever you want then, and and just
Actually, this just
lose
occurred to
himself
me
in it.
because I was kind of this guy back in the 20 something years ago. He's kind of the ultimate nice guy.
Exactly.
He never makes a move, but
So
he
much so
gives
that
her
he's willing to
anything.
kill for it.
But he gives her anything she wants. He
Yeah.
has to spend time with her, never makes a move. I was, the normal version of that guy back in the day. So yeah, that makes sense. Wow,
Yeah.
another statement that the movie made.
And right, they just I guess are we on to
On to sequels and remakes because yeah, that was the end of the movie. He did it for
yeah.
love. I kind of want to see a remake of this in the right hands. I don't. I think it's timeless. Really,
I don't know if I'd want to see this remade.
you
I
think it's good enough? It's don't mess with it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it has to be in the right hands, and I don't know
You
who
know
the
what?
right
I think
hands
it's the
would be.
first time I've said that in a really long
Yeah,
time. I
yeah,
mean, I'm talking like over a year's worth of
right.
episodes. I can't remember the last time I've said that. No, no, do not touch this one.
Maybe Paris, Texas.
But it should be. It should be. The Rock could be in Paris, Texas, though.
No, but no. No, I'm saying that was the last like perfect movie
Yeah,
we
maybe.
reviewed. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I would like to see it modernized. I would like to see this statement put out into the world again. I just don't know who the right hands would be.
I think the problem with doing it now is we've had so many accusations against different generations and
Mhm.
stuff. Whereas I think here It's like the first time it's being done, I
I'm
think.
sure it was done before. This is just the first time it's being put into onto film. This kind of lends credence to what I say every time people criticize millennials. They said the same shit about us. Clearly, they said the same shit about boomers.
But he's not even saying it about the boomers. He's really,
He's saying he's indicting the previous. He's indicting
yeah.
just my
Like
mom's
what?
generation, the silent generation.
Like what do they have? What chance did these kids even have? Is what he's saying.
Yeah.
I mean, these there's nobody stepping up for them. I mean, what like are we talking about like Blackbird Jungle or stuff? I don't even think those are movies that like you know
Hmm.
really indicted a generation. I
Yeah.
think they were just kind of maybe sensationalizing them more. But this is an indictment. this is very much a prosecution
Yeah.
that he's running here, and he's pretty airtight with this case from
Hmm.
beginning to end. I think
Yeah. Underbrains.
on the brains.
In Easy Five. Before I saw this, Grave of the Fireflies was a lock for my best of the year. Now it's got competition.
Yeah, same here. This is could be the easiest five I've done this year. Maybe I don't know.
All right, so what have we learned?
I have to read this book.
Yeah, I should say it's based on a 1961 novel by Al Hine by the same name. Um, and I learned how not to get away with killing someone.
Or not to kill someone.
Well, yeah, depending on
Not
how
to
you
kill
look at
someone.
it.
It's really what it came down to.
Okay. All right, so that's it for Lord Love a Duck. Thank you, Tiles and Jaffe, for mentioning this, bringing it to my attention. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, and of course, subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, we'll be reviewing Mythica: The Dark Spore, going from one extreme to the other. It's a Kevin Sorbo fantasy movie,
Oh, fuck.
and from that into Sorceress,
We
a,
have
a,
to bring in
Skin,
the pain, don't
a,
we?
a Skinamax movie with Julie Strain. We've never done a Julie Strain movie. And then closing the trilogy with Deathstalker 2. If you remember our review of the original Deathstalker, you know where that's going.
And I remember hating Deathstalker 2 even as a kid.
I fucking hated it. I hated it more than you did when we reviewed it.
Like, no, I remember, I'm talking about originally seeing
Uh,
the second one as a
oh, the
kid.
second one, I don't know. I
I don't
hated
think
the
I'd
first
seen.
one.
I don't think I'd seen the first one as a kid. I think I remember seeing the second one as a kid, but I remember
Okay.
hating it.
I hated the first one when we reviewed it some years ago. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. Anyway, until then, of course, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you
There
are.
you are.